AITA for canceling my $41,000 wedding after my fiancé only confessed cheating after I paid. For almost 2 years, my relationship felt boring in the best way. Stable, predictable, safe. So when I paid over $41,000 for our wedding without hesitation, I thought I was investing in a future. 10 days later, my fiancé finally decided to tell me he'd cheated. I, 28F, was engaged to my fiancé, Evan, 33M, for just under 2 years. On paper, our relationship was painfully normal. No screaming matches, no dramatic breakups, no cheating rumors, nothing that would make anyone side-eye us. We both worked, paid our bills, had routines, argued about dumb stuff like groceries and laundry, and whose turn it was to call the internet provider. It felt solid, uneventful, even. I thought that was a good thing. When we got engaged, we talked finances early because neither of us came from money. The agreement wasn't romantic, but it felt practical. I had savings and a job that gave me flexibility, so I'd handle the wedding expenses up front. He said once we were married, things would even out. He kept saying, "We're a team, it'll balance in the long run." I believed him. I didn't partially pay. I didn't split things. I paid for everything. Every deposit, every contract, every single invoice had my name on it. Venue, catering, tastings, rentals, entertainment, attire, fittings, alterations, transportation, printing, vendor coordination, even small last-minute add-ons that pile up fast. I didn't swipe a card blindly either. I negotiated, asked for breakdowns, tracked deadlines, made spreadsheets, followed up relentlessly. Evan loved that part. He told people I was a machine and said he was lucky I handled the stressful stuff. He never questioned the costs, never said slow down, never said maybe wait. By the time the last payment cleared, I had put in just over $41,000. 10 days later, Evan asked me to sit down and talk, not in a nervous way, not shaking, not emotional. He looked calm, like someone about to present information they'd rehearsed. That alone made my stomach drop before he even opened his mouth. He told me that 6 months earlier, during a company retreat, he slept with someone he worked with indirectly. He didn't say her name at first. He said it like he was reading a line item off a list. It happened once. He claimed it was a mistake. He said he cut contact afterward. He said he didn't tell me because it would have blown everything up while we were planning the wedding. I remember staring at him and waiting for something else. An apology, emotion, guilt, anything. It didn't come. So I asked him why he was telling me now. He said he didn't want to stand at the altar feeling dishonest. That answer didn't sit right with me. So I asked another question. I asked him if he would have told me if the wedding hadn't already been paid for. That's when the calm cracked. He didn't deny it. He didn't even argue. He sighed and said, "I knew you'd walk away, and I couldn't lose everything over one mistake." That sentence flipped something in me. Not just the cheating, the calculation, the timing, the fact that he decided when I deserved the truth based on how financially trapped I was. I told him to leave the apartment. He tried to argue. He said we should talk it through. I raised my voice for the first time and told him to get out. He called me dramatic. I told him to leave anyway. That night, I didn't sleep. I went through contracts until my eyes burned. I checked cancellation policies, penalties, timelines. I called vendors the next day under the guise of confirming details just to understand how much was locked in. Almost all of it. Deposits gone. Services non-refundable. Money committed. While I was doing that, Evan was texting me like nothing had actually happened. He said I was being cold. He said I was shutting down. He said money was replaceable and trust was something couples worked on. When I asked how he planned to replace $40,000, he said we'd figure it out together, which felt like a joke considering he hadn't figured out honesty on his own. I canceled the wedding. No theatrics, no announcement, just emails, phone calls, confirmations, and paperwork. When Evan found out, that's when he actually lost control. He showed up angry, loud, accusing me of sabotaging our future. He said I was punishing him financially instead of trying to fix the relationship. He yelled that I cared more about money than about him. I yelled back that if he cared about me, he wouldn't have waited until I'd emptied my savings to come clean. That turned into a screaming match. He called me vindictive. I called him manipulative. He said I was using the cancellation as leverage. I told him he used my trust as collateral. Then his family got involved. His sister called me and didn't even say hello before accusing me of being spiteful. She said I was throwing away years over something that happened once. I told her she didn't get to minimize something she wasn't part of. She snapped back that I was acting like a victim when I chose to pay for the wedding. I told her I chose to pay because I trusted her brother, which clearly made one of us stupid. His mother messaged me saying canceling was financial abuse. That phrase made my hands shake. I replied that cheating and lying until the money was locked was abuse too. She told me I was twisting the situation to justify hurting her son. I told her son hurt himself and was mad I didn't cushion the fall. People started messaging me. Friends, mutuals, acquaintances, asking why I didn't wait, why I didn't postpone, why I didn't think it through. Some said I humiliated Evan. Some said I was impulsive. One person told me I should be grateful truthful he told me at all. Evan fed into it. He told people I weaponized the timing. He said I blindsided him. He said I cared more about winning than about fixing things. When I confronted him about that, he yelled that I was ruining his reputation. I yelled back that he ruined it the moment he decided honesty had an expiration date. At one point, he screamed that I was heartless. I screamed that he was calculating. He said I never really loved him. I told him love doesn't come with hidden conditions and delayed disclosures. Update 1. Evan didn't go quiet the way people kept telling me he would. He didn't give me space. He didn't cool off. He didn't respect that I asked him to coordinate a time to collect his things. 3 days after I canceled everything, he showed up unannounced and acted like the decision was still up for debate. I opened the door because I honestly thought he was there to grab his stuff and leave. I didn't even get a full sentence out before he walked past me and started yelling while still moving, like he'd been building momentum the entire time he drove over. No greeting, no question, just accusations. He said I set 40 grand on fire just to prove a point. That was his opening line. Loud, sharp, like he wanted it to echo. I told him he burned it when he decided to lie for half a year and then wait until my money was already gone to feel honest. He laughed in my face. Not nervous laughter, not defensive laughter, real, dismissive laughter. He said I was exaggerating, that I was inflating one bad decision into a character assassination. He kept repeating that it was one lapse, not a betrayal, like if he said it enough times it would become smaller. I told him to stop raising his voice. He raised it more. He said I loved control more than I ever loved him. He said the wedding was never about us. It was about me managing everything so I could feel important. That pissed me off enough that I yelled back that if control was actually my priority, I would have controlled when he confessed instead of letting him sit on it until it was convenient for him. That's when he said something that still keeps looping in my head. He told me, flat out, that I was useful until I wasn't. I don't even remember responding right away. I remember staring at him and realizing how casually he said it, like it explained everything. I told him to get out. He said no. He planted himself and started pacing, going off about how embarrassed he was, how people at work already knew the wedding was off, how I made him look unstable and impulsive. I snapped and told him he looked unstable because he lied like a coward and then expected applause for honesty on a deadline. He called me bitter. I called him cheap. That word hit something in him because he exploded. He yelled that I was just mad I couldn't buy loyalty. He yelled that money was the only reason I felt powerful in the relationship. I yelled back that he couldn't afford loyalty even when it was free and that he clearly thought trust was something you could defer until after invoices cleared. He kept talking over me, louder and louder, repeating that I ruined everything, that I was dramatic, that I was acting like a victim for sympathy. I told him to leave again. He refused again. At that point, I stopped engaging and locked myself in the bedroom because I realized he wasn't there to talk or resolve anything. He was there to intimidate me into backing down. He kept yelling through the door for a while, accusing me of destroying his future, saying I'd regret it, saying no one would put up with me once they saw how cold I was. Eventually, it stopped. I didn't come out until I heard the place go quiet. That night, his sister messaged me, not to ask what happened, not to check if I was okay. She said I provoked him and that I needed to apologize for escalating things. She said I pushed his buttons and then played innocent. I replied once and told her that her brother came into my space screaming because he didn't like consequences and that if she thought that was my fault, she was welcome to stay mad about it somewhere else. She told me I was cruel. I told her she was enabling. She said I was blowing everything out of proportion. I told her she didn't get to decide what counted as proportionate when she wasn't the one who got lied to. She sent a final message telling me I was going to end up alone if I kept acting like this. I blocked her. Later, Evan tried messaging like nothing had happened. He said we both said things we didn't mean. He said emotions were high. He said we should reset the tone and talk calmly. I didn't respond. Since then, I've been getting messages from people who clearly heard his version first. Some of them are subtle, asking if I'm okay. Others aren't. One person told me I shouldn't have pushed him when he was already under stress. I told them I didn't push him to cheat, lie, or show up screaming. That was all him. I'm not engaging anymore. Not with him. Not with his family. Not with people trying to soften what happened so it's easier to swallow. That's where things stand right now. Update 2. Evan didn't come back in person this time. He went public instead. Not openly. Not with facts. With implication. With tone. With carefully vague nonsense that let people fill in the blanks for him while he kept his hands clean. It started with posts that didn't name me but didn't need to. Stuff about false narratives. About being financially cornered. About how some people confuse control with partnership. He framed himself like someone barely holding it together while being quietly victimized. No dates. No context. Just enough to stir curiosity. Just enough for people to start asking questions. At first I ignored it. I figured anyone who knew me well enough would either ask directly or see through it. Then the messages started. Mutual acquaintances. People I hadn't spoken to in months. Some pretending to check in. Some clearly fishing. Hey, hope you're okay. Just wanted to make sure you're doing all right after everything. One person straight up up, asked me what I did to make him spiral like that. I still stayed quiet until someone sent me a screenshot. It was a private message Evan had sent them, claiming I canceled the wedding to punish him financially and hold money over his head. He said I was unstable, that I reacted without letting him explain, that I cared more about control than commitment. Seeing it laid out like that, knowing he was feeding people a version where I was the villain while pretending to be the wounded party publicly, flipped something in me. I messaged him directly and told him to stop rewriting events. He replied immediately. No pause. No surprise. He accused me of threatening his reputation and said I was trying to intimidate him into silence. I told him his reputation wasn't my responsibility anymore and that if it was falling apart, it was because he built it on half-truths. He called me. No hello. No warning. Just yelling the second I answered. He said I was deliberately painting him as the bad guy. I yelled back that he handled that on his own timeline and didn't need my help. He said I enjoyed watching him scramble. I told him he enjoyed watching me pay and only panicked once the bill came due in other ways. He accused me of turning people against him. I told him people weren't stupid and that insinuations invite questions whether he liked it or not. He yelled that I was vindictive. I yelled that he was manipulative and lazy, that instead of owning what he did, he was outsourcing blame and hoping silence would do the work for him. He hung up on me mid-sentence. The next morning, I woke up to an email from his father. Long, carefully worded. The kind of message that pretends to be calm while still talking down to you. He wrote about forgiveness, about how real commitment isn't conditional, about how adults don't throw everything away when things get uncomfortable. He implied I was acting emotionally and short-sighted. He suggested I was punishing Evan instead of handling conflict with grace. I replied with one sentence. Neither is honesty. That apparently offended him enough to send another email, calling me immature and accusing me of refusing to communicate. I forwarded both emails to Evan and told him to rein in his family and stop sending them after me like messengers in a proxy war. Evan replied that I was hiding behind silence because I couldn't defend myself. I told him silence was the only thing stopping me from correcting everyone loudly and in detail. That message didn't get a response, but the pressure didn't stop. People kept reaching out. Some asked directly. Some danced around it. One person told me I should have let him tell his side first. I snapped and told them he had 6 months to decide when to tell the truth and chose the moment my money was already gone. Another person said I was being harsh and that stress makes people say things they don't mean. I'll take a quick break here to remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you're enjoying the story and tell us if something like this has ever happened to you. I told them stress didn't make him lie for half a year. It just exposed how comfortable he was doing it. Someone else suggested I was overreacting because nothing physical was happening anymore. I told them trust doesn't magically reset because time passes quietly. Evan kept posting, still vague, still wounded. He shared quotes about betrayal and manipulation. He liked comments that talked about toxic partners. He ignored anything that asked for specifics. I didn't respond publicly, but privately, I was done being polite. When another acquaintance messaged me saying Evan told them I refused to even talk things through, I told them exactly what happened and told them they were welcome to decide for themselves whether that sounded reasonable. They stopped replying. At some point, Evan messaged again, accusing me of enjoying the attention. I told him the only attention I didn't enjoy was being lied about. He said I was obsessed with controlling the narrative. I told him he was obsessed with controlling the timing. That was the last exchange we had this week. Update 3. He messaged saying I was hiding because I knew I couldn't defend myself without looking bad. He said I was manipulating sympathy by playing silent. He said I loved being seen as the calm one while he took the heat. I finally replied and told him that if silence bothered him that much, maybe it was because noise was the only thing he knew how to control. That turned into a call I didn't answer. Then another. Then voice messages. He was yelling in them, full volume. No attempt to sound reasonable. He accused me of dragging things out on purpose, of enjoying the mess, of punishing him socially because I couldn't punish him emotionally anymore. He said I was cold, robotic, calculated. He said I'd always been like this and he'd just been too patient to notice. I sent one message back telling him to stop contacting me unless it was about logistics. He replied that I didn't get to set rules anymore. Around that time, people started reaching out in a different way, not asking questions, making statements. One person told me Evan was barely functioning and that I should feel ashamed for pushing him this far. I snapped and told them I didn't push him to cheat, lie, or run a PR campaign about his own relationship. They said I lacked empathy. I told them empathy doesn't mean absorbing blame for someone someone else's choices. Another person told me I should stop correcting people privately because it made me look defensive. I told them I wasn't interested in looking anything and that if Evan wanted silence, he should have practiced it instead of vague posting for attention. Evan escalated again by messaging someone I hadn't spoken to in years and asking them to check on me because he was worried about my mental state. That got back to me within hours. I confronted him and asked if he was seriously trying to frame me as unstable now. He responded that I was unstable and that canceling the wedding proved it. I lost my temper. I called him and didn't wait for him to speak. I yelled that he didn't get to rewrite me into a problem because he didn't like the consequences of lying. He yelled back that I was cruel and heartless and that no normal person throws away everything without trying to fix it. I yelled that normal people don't schedule honesty around payment deadlines. He told me I was obsessed with punishment. I told him he was obsessed with avoiding accountability. He said everyone saw through me. I told him if that were true, he wouldn't be working so hard to control the narrative. He called me vindictive again. I called him spineless. That set him off. He started shouting that I'd regret this, that people don't forget behavior like mine. I shouted back that people don't forget cheating either, no matter how quietly you try to bury it. He hung up. Later that night, I got messages from 2 different people telling me Evan said I refused to compromise and that I was financially abusive. That phrase again. I responded to both of them bluntly and told them paying for something under false pretenses isn't abuse, but lying until the money is gone definitely isn't innocent either. One of them apologized. The other told me I was aggressive and blocked me. Evan didn't stop. He started reacting to my silence by increasing his volume elsewhere. More posts, more likes on comments calling out toxic partners, more indirect digs about control and punishment. He even messaged me accusing me of feeding people information behind his back. I told him if people were coming to conclusions, it was because his story didn't hold up under basic questions. He told me I was trying to ruin him. I told him he was trying to escape himself. That exchange ended with him saying I never loved him. I just loved being right. I replied that if loving him required swallowing lies and pretending timing didn't matter, then no, I didn't love that version of him. Update 4. Up until now, everything had been about feelings, narratives, reputations, and vague damage control. Week 4 is when actual numbers started landing, and suddenly his tone shifted like a switch flip. Vendors began issuing final statements and cancellation penalties, and instead of vague posting or yelling about betrayal, he wanted to talk logistics. That was the phrase he used. Logistics. Like this was a delayed delivery, not the aftermath of him lying for months. He called and opened with a fake calm voice that didn't last more than 30 seconds. He said we needed to be adults and figure out how to handle the losses. I asked him what that meant. He said we should split them. When I asked how he planned to do that, he paused and said he'd figure something out eventually. I actually laughed out loud. It wasn't planned. It just came out. That set him off immediately. He snapped that I was being cruel and dismissive. I told him cruel was letting me drain my savings while he sat on the truth like it was optional information. He raised his voice and said I was acting like he planned everything maliciously. I told him intent didn't matter when the outcome was the same and that accidental damage still counts as damage. He said, "You're acting like I stole from you." I said, "You did." There was silence on the line for a second. Then he hung up. Within hours, I started hearing from other people, not asking questions, making accusations. Someone told me Evan said I was refusing repayment out of spite. Another said he claimed I wanted to bleed him dry and was blocking any attempt to make things right. I messaged him directly and told him to stop lying about me. He replied that I was being financially rigid and unwilling to compromise. I told him rigidity was the only thing stopping him from walking away clean and letting me eat the entire loss. That message didn't get a reply, but the fallout continued. People started messaging me saying I should accept something instead of nothing. I told one of them that something without a plan is just noise. They told me I was being difficult. I told them they were welcome to cover the difference if they cared that much. Evan tried again 2 days later, this time through a long message about shared responsibility and partnership. He said I was punishing him financially for an emotional issue. I replied that he turned it into a financial issue when he waited until the payments were irreversible, to be honest. He responded by calling me transactional. I told him honesty apparently had a transaction date too. That escalated into another call. He was yelling before I could even finish a sentence. He accused me of enjoying watching him scramble. I yelled back that scrambling was the first honest reaction I'd seen from him in weeks. He said I was impossible to deal with. I told him impossible was lying until the bill cleared and then asking for fairness afterward. He told me I was going to regret being this inflexible. I told him he should have regretted cheating earlier, but here we were. More messages came in from people telling me to be reasonable, to take the high road, to stop making it about money. I snapped at one and told them if it wasn't about money, they were welcome to reimburse me personally. They stopped replying. Evan posted again, this time about being stonewalled and financially financially threatened. I didn't respond publicly, but privately I told him to stop portraying himself as a victim of circumstances he engineered. He told me I was cold and vindictive. I told him he was desperate and rewriting reality to cope with it. Update 5. A mutual friend invited me to a casual get-together. Nothing formal, nothing labeled as an event. I asked, very clearly, if Evan was going to be there. I was told no. I didn't overthink it. I showed up early, because that's how I am, and I was already mid-conversation when Evan walked in about 20 minutes later. He stopped dead when he saw me, like full freeze. Everyone noticed. For a second, I thought he might turn around and leave. He didn't. He stayed. He laughed too loud. He went straight for a drink and then another one. He didn't say a word to me at first, just hovered on the opposite side of the room like he was daring me to react. I didn't. I kept talking. I kept my voice steady. I refused to acknowledge him. That seemed to bother him more than anything. After a while, he started talking louder. Not to me. Around me. Comments floated across the room, not subtle at all. Stuff about controlling partners and people who turn relationships into invoices. He made a joke about transactions disguised as love, and a few people awkwardly laughed. I could feel eyes sliding toward me, then away, then back again. I told myself to ignore it. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to give him exactly what he was fishing for. Then he said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Some people think paying for things means owning you." I snapped. I turned around and told him if he was going to perform, he should at least stick to facts instead of vague speeches designed to make himself look misunderstood. The room went quiet in that sharp way where everyone pretends not to listen while listening to every word. He immediately raised his voice and said I was embarrassing him. Said I couldn't stand not controlling the narrative for once. Said I was proving his point by making a scene. I yelled back that he humiliated himself months ago, and all I did was stop covering for the delay. I told him he didn't get to rewrite reality just because the bills finally showed up. Someone stepped in and tried to calm things down, saying maybe we should take it outside or change the subject. Evan waved them off and said this was our business and people should stop interfering. I said it stopped being private the second he started turning it into a public monologue. I told him if he wanted silence, he shouldn't have been so loud about half-truths. He called me vindictive, said I enjoyed dragging things out, said I was obsessed with punishing him instead of moving on. I told him he didn't get to accuse me of obsession when he was the one pacing the room, narrating his own victim story to anyone who would listen. I told him he came prepared to be heard and just didn't like the response. At that point, voices were raised on both sides. He said I was cold, transactional, incapable of letting anything go. I told him he was sloppy, dishonest, and suddenly very interested in fairness only when money was involved. He told me I was proving why the relationship failed. I told him he was proving why honesty never made it into it. Another person tried to interrupt, saying this was uncomfortable and unnecessary. Evan snapped at them to stay out of it. I snapped back that he didn't get to recruit an audience and then complain about witnesses. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, calling me vindictive again on the way out, like he wanted the word to stick if he said it enough times. The room was dead quiet after that. No one knew where to look. A few people avoided eye contact completely. A couple of them gave me that tight smile people use when they don't want to pick a side but want the tension to stop. Later that night, the friend who invited us both messaged me. They said they hadn't known Evan was coming either. Then they told me I should have been the bigger person and let it go for the sake of the group. I told them I was done shrinking situations to make Evan comfortable. I said I didn't raise my voice until I was directly provoked, and I wasn't interested in absorbing insults quietly just to maintain a peaceful illusion for everyone else. They didn't respond after that. Update 6. He sent a message that was completely different from the usual yelling or vague public posts. No accusations, no blame, just nostalgia. He wrote about trips we had planned, shared routines, inside jokes, things meant to sound gentle, almost sentimental. For a moment, it seemed like the Evan I knew before everything fell apart. I didn't respond. I stared at the message for hours, thinking about what he was trying to do. When I didn't reply, he followed up, claiming the silence proved I never really loved him, just the idea of stability. That flipped a switch in me. I fired back, typing quickly and deliberately. That stability doesn't require secrecy and love doesn't involve strategic confession dates. He called immediately, and I answered, bracing for the usual shouting. Of course, it was shouting. He launched into a tirade about how I destroyed something that could have been fixed, how he only wanted honesty, and how I chose to weaponize my anger. I yelled back that he destroyed it quietly. Months of lies stacked up, and now he expected applause for finally telling the truth on a timetable that suited him. He called me heartless. I told him he was careless. He said I was vindictive. I called him selfish and cowardly, pointing out that he waited for financial commitments to be irreversible before confessing. We went back and forth over the phone, both of us raising our voices so high I was sure anyone in the building could hear. Evan let you drop $41,000 on the wedding. Every cent, every contract, while hiding a 6-month-old affair, only confessing once your money was locked in and non-refundable. Not bad luck. Pure calculation. He wanted the wedding without the risk of you bailing early. When you canceled, he screamed you were vindictive, financially abusive, setting money on fire to punish him. His family called you spiteful. His friends said you should compromise. He vague posted victim vibes and demanded you split the losses he never contributed to. You refused to eat the cost of his lies and walked out. AITA. You didn't weaponize money. You just stopped letting him weaponize your trust. Canceling a wedding built on deception isn't revenge. It's the only sane response to a guy who timed his honesty around your bank balance. He didn't lose $41,000. He lost the scam. Tough luck, Evan. Hope Rock Bottom has good cancellation policies. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments and let us know which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out AITA for uninviting my parents from my wedding after they tried to replace my fiancé with my ex. Click here to watch it now.